All right, guys. So it is not just Republican members of Congress who are bending to Donald Trump's will. We've been tracking here a number of instances in particular of Jeff Bezos and other tech oligarchs who have decided to make nice with Trump, some of whom had been quite adversarial to him in the past. And we have a new example, perhaps, of some of the different behavior that is going on with some of those oligarchs. So, Pulitzer Prize winning cartoonist named Ann Telnes, I might be butchering that name, sorry guys, just resigned from the Washington Post because this cartoon was killed by the editor. Let me just pull this up full screen. You could see this. This is meant to be Donald Trump, the long tie, the protruding belly, etc. This is a number of tech oligarchs, and this is the guy who's the head of the LA Times. Obviously, this is Mickey Mouse, but this notably right here, that would be Jeff Bezos, and all of them bending the knee, offering up cash. The LA Times dude is puckering up with the lipstick here to presumably kiss Trump's feet or his ass or something like that. And Mickey Mouse completely prostrating himself in front of Donald Trump. And so apparently this cartoon was killed, and this was sort of a final straw for this cartoonist who was a long time with the Washington Post and obviously relatively celebrated. She actually wrote a Substack explaining why she was leaving, and I'll go ahead and pull this up on the screen and read to you a little bit of what she had to say here. She says, "Why I'm quitting the Washington Post. I've worked for the Washington Post since 2008 as an editorial cartoonist. I've had editorial feedback and productive conversations and some differences about cartoons I've submitted for publication, but in all that time, I've never had a cartoon killed because of who or what I chose to aim my pen at until now. The cartoon that was killed criticizes the billionaire tech and media chief executives who've been doing their best to curry favor with incoming president-elect Trump. There have been multiple articles recently about these men with lucrative government contracts and an interest in eliminating regulations making their way to Mar-a-Lago. The group in the cartoon included Mark Zuckerberg, of course, of Meta, Sam Altman, that's OpenAI, Patrick Soon-Shiong, LA Times publisher, Walt Disney Company / ABC News, and Jeff Bezos, the Washington Post owner. She goes on to say it's not uncommon for editorial page editors to object to visual metaphors within a cartoon if it strikes that editor as unclear or is not correctly conveying the message intended by the cartoonist. Such editorial criticism was not the case regarding this cartoon. To be clear, there have been instances where sketches have been rejected or revisions requested, but never because of the point of view inherent in the cartoon's commentary. That is a game changer and dangerous for a free press. So let me go ahead and read to you what the paper's response was. David Shipley, who is the Post's opinion editor, said in a statement that was provided to CNN and I think other outlets as well, "Not every editorial judgment is a reflection of a malign force. My decision was guided by the fact we had just published a column on the same topic as the cartoon had already scheduled another column, this one a satire, for publication. The only bias was against repetition." So that is their side of the story. But of course, this comes after what sort of kicked off this whole conversation about obeying in advance and the efforts of tech billionaires to suck up to Donald Trump, all of whom have a lot at stake. I mean, Jeff Bezos in particular has massive government contracts and felt that in the first Trump administration, and I think probably rightly so, that he was punished and denied one particular very lucrative government contract. Of course, this man is one of the richest men on the planet. I think he's like number 2 right now to Elon Musk, he's got his position solidified within the Trump administration. But in any case, he felt that contract was held. It appears, he would deny this, I'm sure, but it appears that he very much wants to be on the good side of Donald Trump this time around. And so before the election, the Washington Post decided, which he owns, of course, to spike an editorial endorsement of Kamala Harris. This became a massive, I would say, scandal. It was actually devastating to the Washington Post in terms of their business. A number of journalists resigned. Washington Post business was not doing well under Jeff Bezos. They had lost a huge amount of subscribers because they had really bet the farm exclusively on sort of anti-Donald Trump resistance type editorial direction. and Democracy Dies in Darkness, all of that. And so that was the readership that they had cultivated, really was this, virulently anti-Trump readership. That was their business choice. And, first of all, when Donald Trump loses re-election in 2020, that's going to sort of take the wind out of the sails of that type of content. And then now, when you had Jeff Bezos saying, oh, we don't really do politics and we're just going to stay out of this presidential race, and it has, of course, nothing to do with my own personal business interests, they lost a flood of subscribers. Huge. I should look up the numbers, but I believe it was like over 100,000. I mean, it was a massive blow to their subscriber base. And so what this cartoonist is essentially alleging here is that direction of the Post, that was not an accident, it was not a one-off, that's infected all of their coverage and all of their editorial to the extent that she experienced something she says she'd never experienced before, which is a cartoon getting killed entirely because it was unflattering, not just, remember, to Donald Trump, but also to Jeff Bezos, who owns the Washington Post. And this is why, billionaires controlling our media is such a problem. You might recall Bernie Sanders raising this point in the 2020 Democratic primary. And he was roundly smeared and criticized and scoffed at for suggesting that the billionaire ownership of the Washington Post might have something to do with their incredibly deceptive at times and outright wrong at times coverage of his ideas and his campaign. He was roundly mocked for that. I hope everyone can see, whether it's Elon owning Twitter or Jeff Bezos owning the Washington Post, or these giant media conglomerates that own so many different properties and so have so many, vast business interests, that this is incredibly deleterious to democracy and just to getting fair and accurate coverage. So this is one more example of that. Another one I can throw, this one in fairness, Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, who Trump famously called one time Tim Apple, which always still sticks in my head. He is apparently the latest tech oligarch to decide he's going to donate $1 million to Trump's inauguration. Now, in fairness to Tim Apple, he has long cultivated both sides of the aisle. He went out of his way in the first Trump term to maintain somewhat of a friendly relationship with Donald Trump. But it's still grotesque to see the way that him and Sam Altman and a bunch of others have decided that they're going to specifically cough up millions of dollars to fund the Trump inauguration, which, I mean, is just basically like, it's just a sop, right? It's just a complete sop way of sucking up to the king. That they're doing this is very indicative of where we are. Let me read a little bit of this article because it did have some interesting notes here in addition to Tim Cook. It says, between the lines, Cook, a proud Alabama native, believes the inauguration is a great American tradition. Oh, yeah, I'm sure that's why you're doing it here, Tim. They say in the backstory here, the Wall Street Journal, shortly after the election, wrote an article headline, How Tim Cook Cracked the Code on Working with Trump, noted that he had spent years building personal rapport with Trump. So time to cash in, I guess, on that personal rapport. They also note here that other Silicon Valley inauguration donors include Amazon, Meta, Uber, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. Wall Street's seven-figure donors include Goldman Sachs and Bank of America, crypto exchanges Kraken and Coinbase. Also getting in on the action, Toyota, Ford, and GM are all also donating at least $1 million. So one of the things with these inauguration funds is that direct corporate donations into campaigns that's illegal. So this is a way that corporations can curry favor and, get their little meat hooks into this administration and try to angle for whatever regulatory changes that they want, killing different regulations that they find to be anathema to their bottom line, or sucking up for procurement purposes so that they can be first in line for whatever giant government contracts and subsidies that get doled out. So this is a way for them for these corporate entities and the billionaire heads of these corporate entities to directly curry favor and directly jockey for, the favor of the king. And, with Trump, who's famously like, this is, by the way, this is not particularly different from other administrations. This goes on under Democratic administrations. Sure, if you go back and look who was giving to the Joe Biden inaugural fund, you'll see a similar list of characters with similarly self-interested motives. But Donald Trump is particularly sort of like brazen, and his ego drives so much of his decision making. If you're on his good list, if you're saying nice things about him and he feels that you're being loyal to him, he'll shower you with favors and gifts. If you get on his wrong side, as Jeff Bezos did in the first administration, and Sam Altman is another one who was given a lot of money to Democrats, and by the way, is very much on the wrong side of Elon Musk, who is the right hand to the king right now, then you can be in for a really rough road. The last thing I'll note here, and then I have another piece that I want to share with you, because I just mentioned Elon, who is the right hand to the king. And so it's not just about currying favor with Trump. It's also about currying favor with Elon Musk, who has shown himself already to be extraordinarily powerful, beat the Laura Loomers and the sort of like OG MAGA base on this H-1B visa issue, immediately runs Twitter, right? And can use the algorithm to pump up whatever content he wants, or to, make life difficult for whoever he wants. So currying favor with him is also really, really important. But, this is going to be a significant thing to track. And the biggest business area where there is the most at stake is really in this AI development. And that's where Elon comes in. That's where Sam Altman comes in. That's where Mark Zuckerberg comes in. Every one of the big tech players, they want to make sure, number one, that they're in the top pole position to be the leader in terms of AI technology. The amount of money that is flowing in that direction is absolutely extraordinarily massive. There are going to be government contracts at stake as well. So some of this jockeying, a significant amount of this jockeying, is specifically about AI, and the H-1B fight even is tangential and related to that fight, to have complete corporate capture and unregulated bonanza of AI development, without much regard to how it's going to impact jobs, workers, safety, or anything else. So to get to the Elon part of this, More Perfect Union noted that since Trump won, lo and behold, all of these advertisers that had fled Twitter because of, all of the hate content and all of the Nazis that are just like on your timeline all day long at this point on Twitter. Oh, now that they want to suck up to Elon and the Trump administration, suddenly those advertisers, blue chip advertisers, are coming back. Let's take a listen to a little bit of this.
Not long ago, the biggest brands in America boycotted Twitter, or what Elon Musk now has us calling X, after he took over the platform and let hate speech run wild. Advertisers fled like rats from a sinking ship.
Disney, Apple, and IBM have pulled their ads from the social media site,
to which Musk had a pretty clear message.
Go f*** yourself. Go f*** yourself.
But suddenly, they're scurrying back. Hate speech hasn't disappeared from Twitter. So what has changed? Elon Musk is tied to the hip with Donald Trump, and the corporate giants who once boycotted Twitter, from Disney to Comcast, want to get on their good side.
Take over, Elon, yes, take over.
After Musk's takeover of Twitter, revenue collapsed, and the company's value has decreased by 84%. In the second quarter of 2024, X brought in only $114 million in revenue. That's down from $661 million in the same quarter of 2022, before Musk took the reins. The social media company was in trouble, but Musk anticipated a change of heart at the country's largest companies.
If Trump wins, we'll see, probably most of the boycott lift.
Like clockwork, as the election neared and predictions of a Trump win grew, companies started turning their spending spigot back on. By going back to X, big advertisers are lending the company a much-needed lifeline. But that's not all. In an interview with the Financial Times, Lou Pascalis, a marketing expert, called advertisers' return to X a form of political leverage. It's a calculated move to appease a guy who said, "There's a large graveyard filled with my enemies," and who's so close to Trump he started calling himself the First Buddy, following Trump around and grooving to the YMCA with the soon-to-be president whenever he gets the chance.
So you get the picture there. I mean, this is the tech equivalent of, you remember in the first Trump administration, the easiest way to curry favor with Trump was anytime a foreign dignitary or anyone came into town had to stay at the Trump Hotel right there in DC. Now, the Trump Hotel is not the Trump Hotel anymore. However, another way you can directly curry favor with Donald Trump is, oh, he has his own crypto coin. So you could purchase that. Or if you want to get in good with a quote unquote first buddy and not run afoul of Elon Musk, who, as I said before, has already proven himself to be extremely powerful within this administration, well, your company probably is going to want to buy some advertisements on X. Not because you think it's, directly beneficial to your brand, but because you want to make sure you're in a position to benefit from all of those government goodies. So that is the game that's being played right now. It is extraordinarily high stakes. And, to state the obvious, it's example number 3,000 of how much the government is set up to serve these oligarchs and these massive corporate interests over you. Like, you don't get an audience with the king or the first buddy. You don't get to, throw millions of dollars in advertising onto their favored platform in order to get your little pet projects approved and get in good with the people who actually count. And so, I know this can become sort of like par for the course in America where money is king. But this is how you end up with a situation where the people's voices really just don't count. Where when money is speech, the people who have the most money, they're going to have the most speech. They're going to have the most influence. They're going to have the most say. And, take a look at the way our government is run and who it's run for, and take a look at how these people are behaving as the Trump administration comes into office. And, there's your answer of what this government is ultimately all about. And the last thing I'll say on this one before moving on to the next topic we have here, which is a lot of extraordinary details that I'm going to do my best to unpack about this whole cyber truck dude killing himself and blowing up the truck, etc. The last thing I'll say about this is I think it was Michael Tracy who was pointing this out. He makes a lot of good points. I feel like I cite him a lot. But, Trump in 2016, part of his political power was he positioned himself as being sort of uncorruptible. He's like, I'm a rich guy. I don't need these people's money. I understand, in fact, how this game was played because I played it. I know this game better than anyone else, and I'm going to drain the swamp. Okay. I'm not saying money in politics and the corrupting influence is new under Donald Trump. That would be a lie. Both parties all in on big money. But we are seeing something that is even more brazen under Donald Trump and has been taken to even more extraordinary lengths. Musk in particular, giving $250 million and possibly being directly responsible for Trump getting back in the White House, and then being handed this extraordinarily vast amount of power. He already got what he wanted out of that whole, spending deal that had been negotiated, and then he blew it up. One piece that I'm sure was really important to him was it had some limits on high-tech investment in China that went against his interests because he wants to do some Tesla AI thing in China. Gets that stripped down, gets his way before the Trump administration is even in office. H-1Bs, however you feel about the program. Personally, I think guest worker programs are inherently exploitative. I agree with Bernie Sanders, who wants to, really take an aggressive approach of reform to the H-1B program. That is my position as well. But however you feel about the program, Trump completely flipped on a dime in order to please Elon, David Sachs, Mark Andreessen, his new tech oligarch buddies. That happened during the campaign, but obviously the fight broke out into public just recently, and Elon won hands down unequivocally. He didn't get nothing for that $250 million. He got so much. I mean, the return on it is going to be extraordinary. It already has been. So, there's a new level of sort of oligarch brazenness that I don't think we should accept. And, however you feel about Trump, what side of the political aisle you are on, et cetera. This is about the principle of this is supposed to be democracy. Like, people's voices are supposed to matter in this whole situation. And instead, you've got oligarchs just out and out brazenly running the show. So that's where we are.
Hey, Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.